Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040, bringing to you another edition of the Batwoman Season 1 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about episode 11 called An Unhappy Birthday Present. And this episode pretty much is a continuation of episode 10, where we saw at the end, as Kate Kane walked into her office, we saw Beth standing there, but not as Alice, just as she would have looked had she not gone off the deep end. And it kind of left things on a little bit of a cliffhanger, because the question going into episode 11 is, how can two Beths coexist in the same universe? Now this comes off the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, whereas we saw all of the Earths were fused together as Earth Prime. So we are more or less seeing all the little twists and turns that are going on in each of the Arrowverse shows, and obviously Batwoman, being the newest show of the Arrowverse, is no exception to those changes. So with that all said, let's get right into it. Let's talk about episode 11, An Unhappy Birthday Present. So we pick up where we left off at the end of episode 10, and we see Kate is interrogating Beth, and she almost chokes her out before Beth pepper sprays her and runs away. Kate then confronts Sophie about Alice escaping and learns that Mary also saw Beth. So it's starting to look like that the Beth that Kate was interrogating is from another Earth, but the one they've been seeing running around Gotham is obviously Beth as Alice. So this episode was really intriguing and really gets the old head thinking in ways that you wouldn't normally think. Like, really gets you questioning a lot of things. So anyway, we then see Luke, Kate and Mary inspect Beth's bag, and Kate is able to unlock her phone and finds a recent photograph of herself and Beth, kind of similar to the one that Kara found during the Crisis crossover events when he went to Wayne Manor on Earth 99. So as Mary leaves, Kate tells Luke about experiencing the multiverse during the Crisis event and suggests that Beth is on Earth Prime as a result of the multiverse being put back together. Well, it's good to see Kate has actually picked up on a few things due to her Crisis experience. I mean, after all, she is a paragon at the end of the day. So Kate tracks Beth down to the same playgrounds that they visited as they were kids and apologises for freaking out. They hug, and Kate takes Beth to her bar where she explains the whole multiverse situation. Beth reveals that her Earth's Kate never had any tattoos, but that a lot of elements of their lives are very similar. Now, for those of you who may or may have not seen the Crisis event, Oliver sacrificing himself resulted in all of the Earths fused together. So people who had their old lives before has all been erased, so they don't remember what happened before, they only remember what they know in the now. So obviously Kate, this version of Beth is from another Earth, so she remembers things a little bit differently. So we move on. Beth then mentions that a version of their car accident happened, but Kate was able to save Beth in this version of events. Now, for any of you who remember, during the course of season 1, we see the car crash, but Kate was unable to save Beth. So where this Beth comes from, obviously things work in the reverse. So instead of not being saved, she was managed to be saved. Shortly after that, Mouse sends a video to the Crows revealing that he's kidnapped the sons of local politicians as hostages in exchange for Alice's release. The Commissioner refuses to turn on Batwoman's bat signal for help because of her recent coming out as a lesbian. Yeah, anyway. Which leads to Sophie to try and get through to Alice again. Kate talks to Luke about saving the hostages and debates whether or not she could have really saved Beth as a kid. She travels on her motorcycle to find the hostages, but is hit by a Crow's truck and she's kidnapped by none other than Mouse. She wakes up locked in a car with the hostages. Mouse calls the crows and tells her twice to release Alice, which is code that she shouldn't do it. Good, smart detective thinking, I believe. Beth meets with Luke, who reveals that she's been kidnapped by her doppelganger. She tries to find a way to help and ultimately decides to impersonate Alice as a way to help save Kate. Mary then helps Beth dress up as Alice, which triggers the bad memory which we saw at the end of episode 8, where the real Alice kidnapped and killed Mary's mother, Catherine. Beth apologises to her about what happened. Luke finds Kate's location and Beth arrives just as Kate and the hostages are about to be killed in the car. She tries to convince Mouse to release the hostages, but he argues that Kate doesn't deserve to live. He then realises that Beth is impersonating Alice and locks her in the trunk of the car and starts to set it on fire. Kate manages to escape and fight off the Wonderland gang, minus her batsuit. I always like it when the Bat family, even when they don't have their costumes, they still find a way to get the job done, so Kate is no exception to this. So Beth is still locked in the car and it's set on fire. Kate races to rescue Beth and the other hostages and manages to successfully save them all. Meanwhile, protesters flood Gotham City Police headquarters, advocating for the bat signal to be turned back on. Kate suits up as Batwoman and visits the protests and makes an appearance, and everybody starts cheering. Mary and Luke throw Beth and Kate a surprise birthday party. Mary tells Kate that she finally understands why she had fought so hard to redeem Alice, and then suggests the existence of the multiverse. Kate and Beth both blow out the candles on their cake, just as both Beth and Alice at the same time start to get splitting headaches, and that's how the episode ends. Also, in this episode, we saw Sophie call Jacob for advice on interrogating Alice. He argues that it's not worth it, and just to keep her quarantined until she goes back to Arkham. Alice, as we see, sits in interrogation and remembers the time Mouse gave her a birthday present when they were kids. The present was a kitten who Alice names after the Cheshire Cat. Dr. August gives Alice a candle to blow out for her birthday when she wishes to see her family again. August tells her that's never going to happen. You see, even though Alice is a villain, you can still see there's some good in her, but at the moment the bad outweighs the good. But it would be nice if we could see maybe Alice is redeemed, but we'll just have to wait and see. Later on, Alice asks Sophie for a copy of Alice in Wonderland, but Sophie continues to be hostile to her. She hints that a surprise birthday party is already being planned for herself and Kate. She brings her Alice in Wonderland and explains how reading it helped her get through the horrors of August experimenting on Mouse. We also saw in this episode a flashback where August finds Alice's cat and kills him in front of Alice and Mouse. He later shows Alice a newspaper of Jacob and Catherine's wedding to prove to her that she's been forgotten by her real family. He realises that her sewing skills could be useful to the experiment with grafting human skin onto Mouse. She manages to do it, and it forever changes her into Alice. Sophie then sympathises with Alice for what's happened to her, and she argues that Beth has not been completely lost. Alice disagrees and says that she lost herself after realising everybody had moved on from her. She continues to antagonise Sophie, leading her to being transported to Arkham. Sophie realises that Alice disassembled her copy of Alice in Wonderland and is using the twine to kill the guards transporting her. Alice holds Sophie at gunpoint, telling her that she's locked in her own personal cage before running away. Sophie tries to lock down the city to potentially find Alice and Mouse. Kate arrives and they comfort each other. Yeah, see, there's still a little bit of the old tension there, romantically, so to speak. Sophie later visits Jacob, who advocates for hunting down and potentially killing Alice if necessary. So, what we're seeing in this episode, as far as Beth and Alice, obviously we know that they're from two completely different Earths, but it looks like that only one of them can survive and the other one has to die. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing going into the next episode. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. So I'm going to wrap this up now and leave this here for you guys. What did you think of episode 11? Did you think it was good? Did you enjoy it? What were your favourite moments, if you had any? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time to talk about episode 12. So till then, take care everybody and stay safe.